Okay, so this is a planned new product called the XL Addin. An add-in is basically a piece of software you can add to an existing primary program, such as, in this case, Excel, and it extends Excel with MacroView specific data access functionality. It leverages the metaserver protocol and the ADO.NET libraries we've developed. There's a similar theme through all of our recent development, and the leverage approach has been going well. It's a replacement for the MacroView DDE package, which is quite long in the tooth now. Now, when I started preparing for this presentation, I couldn't get away from the fact that I talked about this last year in 2005 user group, and it's years gone by and still haven't got a released product. So I'll give you a few excuses before I continue.
No reasons. We don't know.
Last year we demoed a prototype based on a development package called Visual Studio 2005 Tools for Office. Microsoft have these very long names, like the expression thing was Microsoft Expression Interactive Designer. This Visual Studio 2005 Tools for Office, it was document-centric, which means the code associated with a spreadsheet was defined in the spreadsheet, and it linked to DLLs on a server somewhere. And the problem with that is that you've got a tight linkage between the code and the spreadsheet. So if you pass that spreadsheet around to someone who doesn't have that package installed, when they open the spreadsheet, they'll get this nasty looking dialogue saying, please, something about DLLs, and that's just not useful for an end user. They don't care about DLLs, they just want to open the spreadsheet. Since then, there's been a second edition of that development package that includes add-in support, so you can create an add-in for Excel. But it was only released pretty recently and wasn't really polished enough, so we decided to go with a third-party add-in development tool. So really it was a reset in terms of the development cycle. As mentioned, this is a Excel DDE replacement. The DDE is an older technology. We've got issues with the protocol implementation of that, especially for large data sets. And it's difficult to maintain. It's C code developed quite a while ago. DDE still exists in the current Windows systems, but it's difficult to maintain, and also getting more and more difficult as new Office releases come out and new operating system versions come out. And it's got some other weaknesses. And so we decided to leverage metaserver because it is so useful in a number of areas, and we leverage it across a number of applications. So the software architecture for the XL add-in is you have a series of MacroView servers on the network. Each one of them runs a metaserver, and you install a package on a local PC, and that installs a COM add-in. This is technical terms that don't really need to go into it unless you're truly interested in the details. That links to the existing Excel COM API. The add-in's a .NET application using ADO.NET for communication, and it wraps a COM interface into Excel. It loads when Excel starts and provides a toolbar with the MacroView functionality. We'll probably add a menu as well, but at this point in time it's just a toolbar. Communicates using the metaserver protocol between the clients and servers using TCP/IP. Do you want to take over from here? Yep. So Tyson Stolowski is the primary developer. I've helped at various points in time, but he's done most of the development work, so I'll let him take you through the rest of the presentation.
Okay, so firstly I'd just like to mention I prefer having a conversation rather than giving a speech, so feel free to I actually encourage you to interrupt me and ask questions. Firstly, the installation. It basically adds into the Windows 2003 XP program list. So it's just there, and add and remove programs dialog from control panel. It's there available to add, remove if you want, or it's not hidden. It's a standard setup.exe MSI file. It actually requires adding rights. We didn't go with the smart client approach, click once deployment like the MacroView Windows desktop. Because of the Addin functionality, it was complex, so it basically requires adding rights to be installed. We're officially supporting XL 2003 and XL 2007 support in early 2007.
I'll interrupt you, Tick.
Yep.
About earlier versions.
Well, officially supported 2003, so it may work with earlier versions. We won't be fully testing on them, but I mean...
I'll probably try and test it.
Yeah.
Our IT finally, over in the last couple of months, updated ours from Office 97 right into... I mean, it takes time.
Yeah.
Up to Office XP. They did go to 2003 though.
Oh,
so, don't know.
Okay.
So that's just a new thing, so I'd be interested to see how it would go with that, 'cause I did play around with it.
I didn't try this version on 2002, it didn't.
Oh, really?
It's,
Like you're saying,
it's possible, but it'll be a separate additional development exercise, so we can talk through it offline.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Right. So the prerequisites, basic Office Service Pack 2 of Office 2003, the .NET 2.0 runtime libraries, and this is actually included within the exe file, the setup file. It's basically another set of libraries that manages multiple add-ins. So if your organisation has another add-in for Office or Excel, they won't interfere with each other. They will run smoothly together. And obviously a meta server connection somewhere to retrieve data from. Okay. Just a quick overview of the actual query types that you can run from this and return. I'll go into each of these in more detail later, but just a quick overview. The single entity value. This is just the normal entity.attribute that you're used to, which returns that from the connection. A single metascript result. That's similar to the single entity value. It's another just a singular string or a number or something. However, it's specified as an arbitrary metascript rather than an entity.attribute. Historical data table. This is an actual range of values. Trend data and stuff that you specified from the connection. A metascript data table, again, a series of values. However, this is just any arbitrary metascript code that returns a data table. And a dbase file data table, which is simply an entire dbase file from the server. Okay. Connection management. As it is multi-server, there's multiple connections defined for the spreadsheet. They're actually referenced by a server label, so you can link a host name or IP address to an actual meaningful name rather than having to type in straight the IP address. This is useful to give it a meaningful name, obviously, but also if the machine changes for whatever reason and the host name changes, the IP address changes, you just go to the connection, change the thing it references, and the queries are all still run. There's no broken links. You can default username for each connection is defined within the spreadsheet, so you only have to define that once. And additionally, the password is not defined in the spreadsheet, but it will store it on the computer in isolated storage, encrypted, so it's all secure. So as long as you're on the same computer, the same user, you only have to specify your password once, and it will go through and do it all for you afterwards for each connection, obviously. Yeah. And we have support planned. The new anonymous logins for meta server, where it's anonymous login, low level rights, whatever. If you've got configured on your meta server, so that's already implemented for meta server. Ours currently doesn't, but we have that planned, so you don't actually need to log in with a username. If you want just a general low level spreadsheet, you can use an anonymous login.
And to do that, you've got to run the meta server on the server with a certain mode.
Yeah, that's configured. Yeah. Okay, I'll go into more detail now on each of the types of queries you can run. Firstly, the single entity value. It, as I said, returns an entity.attribute value. That's the dialog box for it, where you define the query. You can see that there is obviously the connection. Choosing one of those will populate all the available entities on that connection, on that server. And then choosing an entity will populate the available attributes for that entity. That fully defines a query. The query name, that's the name that actually maps the query to a specific cell within Excel. That you've got two options. You can generate it automatically. For this particular query, it's, as you can see, the connection name underscored by the entity name underscored by the attribute. Or you can, by unchecking it, type in your own name if you want to make a more meaningful name.
I'm just sorry, fast. You know, Neil, on the existing DD one, you've got it every time you add entities, you've got to refresh. This will do that all automatically, so that it'll get it every time.
Are you actually picking your that list straight up off the server?
Yeah.
From the server.
Every time you go
Every
in?
time you connect to it, it gets it from
So it's automatically.
So you change an entity, it's immediately available to all your DD, or your Excel add-in clients.
Yeah. Just a quick note: we tried to go with a dot approach, so entity dot attribute, to match in with a normal MacroView formatting. Yeah. However, that caused problems when using because the way it maps, it actually names the range. So rather than having A1, it renames A1 to that name there. And that's how it maps in with it. So then when you do calculations, which is possible, rather than if you put it in A1 and then do in some other cell equals A1 times 2, that'll also work. So you do equals core 2, etc., times 2. It'll multiply the value in that cell. So you can do all full formulas with it as per normal. So the dot approach caused problems within the formulas for some whatever reason due to Excel. So we had to go with the underscore approach. Not a big issue. I mean, that name can be renamed to whatever you want. It's just a mapping, so it makes no real difference. Already just gone through all this.
On that, once you set your entity value and you give it a different name rather than that, can you go and see what that's actually mapped back to, and then modify that if you need to? Like in that, you can look at that now and say, okay, well, that's definitely my entity attribute.
Yep.
If you call that dog, do you know what dog actually relates to?
Well, yeah, you just exactly. Yeah,
Yes,
good question.
we'll get to that.
I'll get to that. But yeah, basically, you can go back and edit it or see it, which brings this screen back up so you can see what it is. Yeah. Okay, and another mode, continuous update mode. Currently, we only have to update to actually run all the queries and return the values. We have a button that runs all the queries. We have planned a continuous update mode for things like this, so you can specify a whole range of single entity values, enable continuous update, and it'll every specified time interval to run the queries and return the values automatically. This allows you, as you can see there, I'll show you later. You can also obviously set a pie chart or whatever to that range of cells, and so if you enable automatic update, you'll basically get a dynamically updating pie chart matching the values of that query. I'll give you a quick demonstration now of the single entity value. So you can see up here, that's the toolbar that's been added in. It's also in the toolbars list. You've got a MacroView toolbar there. That's this one that corresponds to single entity value. So now, as you can see, there's no connections because it's a new thing. So add a new connection. Let's call it core 2. Host name is also core 2. Now that'll go through and connect because I haven't connected before on this instance. It'll also ask for a username and password. So that would be macro. Okay, there you go. Grabs the list of entities, choosing one, grabs the list of attributes, and so we can define it. As you can see, the name changes as I change it to match the automatically generated one. We can also uncheck that and type in whatever we want. But we'll leave it as automatically generate. Okay, as you can see, it changed from A1 to the name of the query. So that's A2, but that one's no longer A1. It's actually named there. That's how it maps to it. No value there yet until we run the queries. So we'll run all the queries. There you go, grabs the value. Running again, should change as it changes the server. Okay, we'll add a few more quickly.
That's picking up the instantaneous value that when it runs the query, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So, and 5. Okay, now I'll show quickly how to show that it works as well. The formula. So let's grab that one, And see, it inserts the name of the query rather than the cell name. Let's times that one by 2. So there's not a value there yet, but there will be soon when I update it. Let's times this one by 3. And let's times this one. Let's leave this one the same. Okay, so now when you run it, those first 3 should be all run, and there you can see it's actually multiple. It's done whatever the calculation corresponds to that. I'll also now show the pie chart quickly. So let's base it on those values. So I'm not basing on the actual entity values, but the calculation we've done on the entity values. Chart. Let's look at the pie chart. Finish. And there we go. Now, like I said, we don't have the continuous update mode implemented yet, but when we do, it'll basically be the same as just clicking this continuously. So as you can see, dynamically updates to match current entity values. That'll be automatic, obviously, if you have it enabled. Go back to this. Okay, we'll cover query management now. So obviously, as your spreadsheet grows, you can have many queries defined on many different sheets and stuff. So keeping track of them, you obviously want a way to keep track of them. This is the Query Manager screen. It gives you a list of all current queries defined for the spreadsheet. You can... They're the names that actually map to the spreadsheet, so that's the name of the cell as well. And then you can see there's a range of buttons down the bottom. Select will set that query's range to the current selection and zoom to it. So if you're on a different sheet or on a different part of the spreadsheet, clicking select will move your view back to that cell that's specified for that query. Run will run the individual query, so if you're running all the queries, you've got a whole bunch of them, or if you just want to update that specific one, you just run the individual one. Edit will reopen, as I said, reopen the whatever type of query it was, so you can change around different things if you want to edit it. And delete obviously deletes the query from the spreadsheet. I'll give you a quick demonstration of that. So we've got 3 queries defined. We'll go into, that's the query manager there. So you can see the 3 queries. Clicking select, we'll watch, if you see, look at A1, we'll highlight that one. That'll now move highlighting that one, etc., etc. You can also, even if you're on a different sheet somewhere, say somewhere else, clicking select, we'll go back to that other sheet that it's on and highlight it. Run will update that individual one. As you can see, that's the only one that's updating. Edit will open up this back to this screen with the current specifications and allow you to change it if you wanted to. And delete will delete the query. Okay. I'll also quickly show you the multi-server approach we've done here. So we'll define another single value query. However, this time, rather than it being from core 2, we'll make another connection. FC5, wasn't it? Yeah. There we go. So we'll define that one and that one.
You haven't checked the FC5.
Oh, oops, sorry, yeah.
They actually have
Oh, they're the same, aren't they?
Same configuration.
Same configuration, yeah.
Black magic.
Smokes and mirrors.
Okay. Now if we do run all queries, it'll update all the queries from all the different connections. Oh, we have to log into FC5. Macro.
Yeah, that proves it's not smoke and mirrors. It's the other server.
Different password, there you go.
There we go. It grabs all the different values from multiple servers at the same time. Okay. A historical data table query. It's basically just a cover over another underlying metascript query with the create historical view syntax. It loads a historical specification and list configurations at runtime when you select the server. So you know the hlist and hspec dbase files that specify the types of trending and the entity or attributes that support trending. Loads them and displays them. As you can see there, it's got the connection at the top and sample specification. That's populated by from the HSpec list, and that's populated from the HList file. There's no limit on the amount of entity or attributes you can grab for trending, so you can grab as many as you want. Well, no limit implied by this. There might be by bandwidth or something if it's ridiculously long. For the actual time interval, you can specify up to 2, start time, end time and duration. Obviously, the third one can be derived from the other 2, so there's no need to specify all 3. If you just specify less than 2, there's a default value. So, for instance, this one here would end time defaults to the current time, so this would end at the current time and start at 10 minutes before the current time. And now that now we've got table data rather than single value data, there's obviously you can either select a range now to specify this query for, but now if that range you've selected doesn't match the data that's returned from this query, there's obviously going to have to be some rule to specify what happens. I'll go over these in more detail next, but basically there's insert, overwrite or truncate. And you can, as you can see here, leverage the Excel charting to make nice trended graphs. Basically this returns a list of the data table, so you just highlight that, insert a line graph or whatever other graph, and you can get nice graphs and such. I'll quickly show you that. So we'll grab a new sheet. And this time we'll insert a historical table. As I said, you can define a range if you want, or I'll just leave it as a single one and let the Excel add-in handle what to do. Let's grab 10-second samples for the last, let's say 10 minutes. And we'll grab that one, that one, that one. Grab a range. This is the actual order that they'll appear in from left to right in the columns, so it's well specifying you can move them up and down and change the order that they appear in. You can also remove them if you don't want that one or whatever. And again, the name, as this one's a bit hard to derive an actual meaningful name, it's just historical table, and then the automatically generation for consecutive ones will be .2, .3, .4. Again, you can put a more meaningful name in if you wish. You can include the column titles for the return data table. I'll leave that as no for now, so it returns the pure data. And here's the rules: insert, overwrite, or truncate. We'll leave it as insert. Okay. Now if we run it grabs the data for that specific. And there we go. Just a note on this, you can see there's a bit of duplication of data. This is supposed to be a date column and that's supposed to be a time column. However, the return data table for some reason includes the hours and minutes with the date. So we'll have to sort out a way with that, or we might leave it as blank. I mean, you can do what you wish with it, but that's future consideration. So you can see the... Now, if you click another one there, you can obviously specify another type of query. However, if you've got a selection within within a query that's re-specified, as this whole thing's now a query, clicking on these does certain things. I mean, clicking on a different type, trying to insert a different type over the top of this one, will obviously error. You can't do that. However, clicking on the same type, the historical table, is another way to edit this query. So it'll open up the query with the one I've just specified, and you can change things. So I'll just now include column titles and click OK, and I'll run it again to grab those column titles. And there we go. Now I've got the column titles. Just a quick demonstration of how you can leverage the Excel functionality as well. So grab that and we'll insert another chart, line chart this time. Next. There we go. As you can see, the x-axis is really messed up. That's because it actually grabbed both these columns as the x-axis. It's to do with Excel detecting that they're both time, I guess. So we'll get rid of the A. We'll just use the B column. Finish. There we go. You've got a nice chart based on that data that query returned, and updating. I'm not sure if it will change too much because this hasn't been that much difference, but updating should also update there. You can see the end bit change a bit. Okay. Now I'll cover the options for inserting. Obviously, so you've defined the range to insert it into, define the query. If that query now is too big to fit in that range, you can, well, there's 3 options to find. Insert will let Excel insert columns or rows to accommodate any excess data. So if you define any other data on the sides or below it that's obviously you want kept, it'll just push that to the side or down, and in the new rows it'll insert the data that you want that was the excess from the query. Overwrite will actually not insert any more cells or columns or rows. It'll just any excess data will be overwritten to the cells next to it. So if you have any data that's that's good, it will just overwrite that. So be careful when using that option. And truncate will cut off any of the excess data returned. So it'll simply fit the range you specified. And then the excess one will just be left out. Okay. So now we'll do onto Metascript. As you can see, it's basically just a piece of Metascript code that returns any data table. You've got table variables, database views, database filters, and historical views. That's the new syntax. That's the new Metascript syntax editor. As you can see, it's coloured for the various keywords. We'll be extending that. That'll actually, in the future, include autocomplete for entities and tributes defined for that connection. So you can start typing in whatever, and it'll show you a list of possible things that you finished off typing in. And also for keywords. So if you started typing create, it might show, type create and just hit enter, and it'll type the rest of it for you and keep going.
That's a bit like Windows.
Another bit of functionality we haven't yet implemented is leveraging the Metascript declare variable syntax to actually pull in values from within Excel. So say you had some Metascript historical view set up, but you wanted to obtain the start and end time from a cell within Excel. You could define that cell to be a variable, and so then when the query runs, it will grab whatever date times typed into those 2 cells, insert it into Metascript, and run a nice Metascript like that. I'll quickly show you one of those. Again. So this is the one for Metascript. Okay, so we'll just do a now I'm going to make a mistake here on purpose. Just to show the error reporting functionality. Okay, I can't type. Okay, that shouldn't work. We'll stick that in. Okay, so now we run this. I missed that file keyword, so it shouldn't work. There we go. So it just shows there's a pass error, and you can, if you know about Metascript, you can see what that error is. Go back into it again. You could go into the Query Manager, go down to it and click Edit, or you can simply choose where it's defined and click this again to edit it. So I'll fix it up. Okay, and now I'll run it. There we go, it grabs the entity dbase file from the server. Another quick demonstration of using this functionality with Excel functionality. You can just set a filter, and now we can grab all the entries from dbase. Not many there. dbase 4, NQE, etc., etc. So it's pretty easy to make some nice reports. Okay, back to this. And finally, the dbase query. This is, again, just underlying metascript that uses the create view from file syntax. It's basically used just to grab an entire DBase file from the server and stick it into Excel. So you got two options. You can type in the file verbatim if you know what it is, or you can use the little button there. You can see that opens a dialog box and gives you a list of all the files located on the server, and you can choose one of those.
How does it go with sharing permissions? As in, a number of times if I open a DBase file and I leave it open, just for instance, I'll find my process file.
Right.
It will hang because it can't write to that file.
Yeah, it doesn't actually open the file. It uses a query, metascript metaserver query, and just returns another data table. So obviously it's open for an instance while it's running that query, but after that it's closed. Yeah. Again, it's entire DBase files, so if you want to do filtering or stuff like that, you use the metascript query result, the metascript query to get more advanced functionality. And that's just the open file dialog box, so you can actually see the files on the server. I'll run through that quickly.
So just taking a snapshot of it, it's read-only sort of thing, not writing.
Yeah, this is all for report generation type stuff, so it's all read-only, just grab the stuff from the server.
You really got that right stuff, don't you?
There's no way that you could write back to the MacroView.
Yeah, it's possible. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's possible, yep. But you'd want to activate it and choose to do that. You may want to have like some sort of offline calculation where you want to write back some set points, and that's possible. But again, everyone's authenticated as a user. So we're using Macro as a login. You'd probably, engineers would have used that as a login. Other users would use other logins, which give them different authorities.
To have the right functionality, you have to modify this program. So
Yeah,
you
yes.
haven't got it with right capability.
No, that's right.
But, I mean, the meta server functionality allows for that, so it's
The protocol
not a
itself
big-
does.
Yeah, so it's, yeah. Okay, so again, this is the DBase file. You can either type it in or just grab a file from, or search for a file on the server. So we've got there that populates from the current server. So we'll just grab the colours. That'll work. Include column titles, and we'll run it. As you can see, it's starting to take a bit longer now to run all the queries. It's because they're defined for an entire workbook rather than sheet, so it's running all the queries I've defined in all these different sheets. And that's the DBase file that I just retrieved. Okay. Oh, and this is another query type. Like I mentioned, we haven't implemented it yet. It's basically similar to the single value query, but it takes an arbitrary metascript code that returns any single value. Again, it uses the syntax, the metascript syntax editor, coloured screen. Like I just said, it's not implemented yet, but it will be. And yeah. Okay, query definitions. This is how we actually store the query definitions into the file, for those that are interested. That way, obviously when you close a file and reopen it, it has to, all the data is there that's stored in Excel is just the numbers, but it needs some way of knowing which queries are defined in the last instance of the program. So we got all the queries in memory when the worksheet's open. When you save it or close it, it serializes that memory into an XML file or an XML stream, which you can store wherever you want. Currently, in this implementation, we're just storing it in a file, an XML file next to the worksheet. But that's not in the first version. We will have that being stored into a hidden sheet within the worksheet, within the workbook. So if you want, you can open up that sheet and have a look into it and see if you want to change something or something. It's all XML, so it's all very visible and stuff. It's not all, it's not binary serialization or anything, so it's all visible text data.
Tyson, can I just take a 5-minute break and then come?
It's
finished now.
finished.
It's finished.
Are you done?
Yeah, give us 1 minute. Yeah.
Shout.
Yeah, so like I just said, the spreadsheet's going to be passed around between users. As long as both users have got the toolbar installed and the connections to the same servers that you specified. Send a file to it, they open it up, the queries get deserialized back into memory, and then when you run it, the queries run as normal. and retrieve the updates, or retrieve the latest values for those specified queries. If they don't have the Addin installed, or if they don't currently have a connection to the specified servers, it'll still open up fine, there won't be any errors. You simply won't be able to run the queries again, obviously.
You will be able to see the data.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you've got a data in
The latest data that they updated.
It won't update the latest.
Well, if you don't have a connection, you can't. And if you don't have
you've got it and you can, because you'll be
They
able
won't
to
get
get
rid of
it.
it.
No, all the data will be there. So
Yeah.
you can email it to you and you can look at the information and find out anything.
Okay, just quickly release plans. January 2007, that's with official 2003 support. Obviously, when we'll also be supporting 2007 soon, hopefully. Just a list of items that we've got on the work. General failure scenario handling, like just bugs and stuff. There's still, it's beta version, so beta version, so there's still quite a few bugs we worked out. Connection manager form. This is another form that will display all the current connections specified for that spreadsheet, so you can go and see which ones are connected, which ones are disconnected. You can also change around default usernames and passwords for connections if you want to change the usage default you use to log in by default. The continuous update mode, as I mentioned, that's just continuous update mode. That will be implemented in the first release. Online help. The hidden sheet for storing the XML. As I mentioned, that's currently stored to the file, but that will be within the actual same spreadsheet. The single metascript query, and support for multiple macro-ders. As was mentioned previously, some people have multiple macro-ders specified on the same server. The meta server protocol implements that already, but this currently doesn't. But we will, in the first release, simply add another field to the login screen where you just specify which macro-der you want to log into.
So Simon and Bunbury, you'll be able to DL3 and DL5 instead of
Okay, that's about it. Any questions? Is everyone hungry?
One question, sorry. With the continuous update,
Yep.
can you specify an entity and attribute for, say, the 10 most recent data points, and will that continue to give you the 10 most recent, or do you have to specify a start and end time, hence any historical values will...
Do you want the historical view?
Yeah,
So for the
that.
historical query in particular, can you get the latest 10 values rather than
specifying start and
start
end
date? Yeah, well, we were talking about that as well, weren't we? We were talking about having another option, a fourth option, rather than it's both start and end time, just specify a start or end time, and then grab the most recent or previous.
Or just the number of recent ones and
entries.
and continuous update.
For that particular sample type, yeah. Possible.
Continuous updating chart.
Yes, the chart will go back.
Is that compatible still with that come out with our current EDE? The reason why I'm asking that is that I've got a few daily reports that actually run on Excel.
Yep. And you can run them, they can coexist.
They can I actually haven't tried, but I imagine they'll coexist. But you're thinking more about not doing the extra work to convert the spreadsheet.
Because my spreadsheets actually run on macro, which I only change the date, so they actually generate my daily reports.
Yeah.
So I actually run on a DDE server.
So you want to change, export the spreadsheet so it can be used with MetaServer.
So they can use with this new package that's coming in.
I'm not actually familiar with the DDE syntax. It's definitely possible to write a conversion utility, but you're probably best to talk to Doug.
There's a macro these guys use, and they put the date into a cell, and then you do a Control-Alt-I, and it goes through, takes that date, and it replaces all the DDE queries with this current date.
Okay, so with our plan support with the variables, we can insert variables.
It would be more efficient if you took that spreadsheet, copied it, and used the variable, and the variable can be in a spreadsheet. So you can do exactly what your current one does. Your current one puts all the data into one sheet and does all the calculations somewhere else, doesn't it? That's quite cool, because then you can just make a copy of it, and you can start putting a new one in, and you can put that, and you can do it, and it's much nicer to edit and change with this one. And then you can compare the numbers between the two, and they'll go up and you have to do it. But I would suggest that and then all you have to do is type in a date frame, one shell, and then cell, and then click on the update queries, and then it'll update the query.
So mapping a variable to a cell lets you do heaps of tailoring and fancy stuff. Basically, you can have a UI in Excel which sets cells, and then when you click the run query, the Addin reads the cells, sends it to the Metascript. The Metascript changes its behaviour based on those values and returns back a query. You can do amazing. We'll be able to do amazing stuff with that.
Now, one of the things we were thinking about doing was, depending on the release date, one doesn't like me saying this sort of stuff, we can look at just coming up with a version that just does real-time and historical, that's it. So it duplicates the DDE, absolutely. It doesn't do any of the other stuff. There's a release 1 version that we can get out there and you guys can use, or we can wait until everything's there. And it's a question that we'd like to ask readers, like, would that be practical, or would you rather wait until January to get the whole lot in January? You happy to wait till January? And Neil, do you have any queries? Because you probably have it.
Yeah, well, again, with the macros, to write a macro, does it work as an Excel function as well? So that, the current DDE, you can enter a formula into cell equals empty DDE survey and the attribute populate.
Hang on. Neil's taken the DDE one to another level, and he's gone into Visual Basic, and he writes a whole bunch of code that populates the DDE cells from the Visual Basic code.
Right.
So would you be able?
Do you have a function version as well as the Addin?
We've got no plans for it, but how does it work? Yeah,
how do the functions work?
Okay, basically, as with other add-ins, you can get a function version where it, like any other function in Excel, so your own sum, average, whatever.
Yep.
It then calls that DLL or program or whatever you've got to populate the cell based on a formula.
Based on the formula, and so what you want to. That formula grabs DDE values, retrieve.
Yeah, well, it still all it does is retrieve the values from SCADA, but rather than having to click on the menu or
and define it, or you can
manually update it does it, so it can be done automatically by a macro.
Neil's got some cool. He's got buttons that you click in Excel.
Yep.
So he's got update from PCC1 or PCC2 or the backup one. He clicks on that button, it executes a Visual Basic program.
So basically, it'll run a macro to populate cells with a formula which is equals MB DDE.
And all the DDE syntax, and then it'll initiate a DDE uplink, and it'll go off
Yeah,
with
right.
information.
Well, we're going to look into it. I imagine there's some way to expose the actual query API.
Yeah, we can do it. It's just it's an extra
Yep.
piece of work that it's possible.
There's another one right there.
Well, this is one of those things that would be interesting. I mean, you could still run the queries like this one is, and then have the Visual Basic program doing all the manipulation once the queries have been done. But Neil will be interesting in Bernard, because these guys use the DDE stuff to a very high level. Any other questions? Lunch? Yeah, Simon?
Just a query about when you import some data, I think on DDE it also imports the actual tag name and the source. So if you import a whole stack of data, you're wondering, once you've done that, to come back half an hour later, it's the data that's what? And by looking at each cell, you can see where it comes from.
All right.
It doesn't import the data right in front of you to look at straight away. Is that?
So what are you saying? You can find out by clicking on menu items to see what
If you click on that cell and edit, you can see what the values are.
I understand.
Also, you can click on the cell and it will come up with the name in the top left-hand side, and that is the entity in the attribute.
So you mean
But
with
on DDE, it imports the actual name alongside. It puts the name of the entity you're trying to.
and then the value next to
all the
it.
values alongside it, so you can say, well, that column there was my power factor for that TA set. That column there is my kilowatts for that TA set. Without having to sort of go over Excel and say, what the hell was that? I can't remember what I imported half an hour ago. It's all sitting in front of you.
If that's an issue, you can either just put two values side by side. One's the dot entity and one's the value, and that'll keep in sync. Other than that, we'd have to add something like automatically putting a comment. That'll be a nice way of, for every updated one, an Excel comment with what it is. That'd be a nice way of being able to just scroll your mouse over and display it.
I'm not sure how DDE works. I've never really played with DDE that much. But is this for trend data and stuff, or is this more for just single values?
Real-time data.
Real-time data.
Real-time data.
Well, I forgot to mention before, just reminded me then, with the, say, historical, when you insert the thing, see how it says value 1, value 2, that is actually going to change to the specific entity.attribute. So they'll have it there.
That would be a big help.
Yeah, that's there. That's, yeah,
would-
I forgot to mention before, but yeah,
Because
that's...
the existing DD1 doesn't do that.
Right, we have to, okay.
You've got to work in the DD1,
Yeah.
you have to actually go
But-
to, it just goes value 1, value 2,
But,
value 2.
Yeah, again, with the single entity values, it wouldn't be hard just to add a checkbox similar to that one, to display value, and just next to it display the entity or attribute as well.
Well, if you could do that, and then you've got the option of deleting that box later on.
Exactly.
Bring it up, you see what it is, then you can move the data around the spreadsheet however you want, save that name, or delete it, depending on how you want
I
to
think
use
that's one
it.
suggestion of having the comment, so when you hover over it, it actually picks it up.
A tooltip?
Yeah, tooltips.
But then you're not cluttering the rest of the view.
Just a general comment. DDE for us was really hard to maintain. Now this XL add-in is in the stream of our development direction, so it's a maintained product from here on in. So we can actually evolve it with the users, and it's a lot easier.
Because you could have a thing where, like Dave, you're saying, you could, when you do a real time, you can say, do you want to add a comment?
Yeah, exactly.
Or not?
And
And if you untick it, it's not there.
Set the
If you
tooltip.
tick it, then when you hover over it, but the problem you've got is if you've got a whole bunch of numbers, you've got to move your mouse to each one to see what it is instead of seeing it all on the screen.
Well, you could, if the comment thing, you put view comments in Excel, you can actually have them all up.
Oh, you
or
can
down.
too. You can. I discovered that the other day by mistake. It's pretty neat.
Many good comments.
Spending hours.
Okay, well, we'll end it here and have lunch. Thanks.
Very good.
Yeah, very good.